are getting longer. That means a lot to me because I suffer during the dark days of winter. And there's a little old Central Oregon high desert nursery rhyme. I don't know if you've heard it. It's called March snow and showers bring April snow and showers. And then April snow and showers bring May snow and showers. And May snow and showers bring June flowers, and the sun doesn't come till July. It's an honor for me to be here. There's sometimes I have a little bit of imposter syndrome because I'm a dad. I have a job, and even with my poetry, I feel sometimes like as though I'm not worthy of it. It just comes through me, but I don't sit down and try to make it happen. It just happens. And even in this talk, I knew what I wanted to do for weeks. And I knew I wanted to call it Advanced Manifestation and General Wizardry, just because that sounds so cool. And I'd be working along and giving the talk in my head, and it's fantastic, and then I have moments like, what if it's not there? What if it's not there? And then no, it's there. It's there. It's going to be there. It always is, and I surrender to that. And there's things about, there's things about my life. I'm one of those kids who grew up paying attention. I paid attention. And it's been a journey. I grew up in what you could call a doomsday cult. I grew up in a small religion. The Bible pounded into me. And everything was shaped around the idea that Armageddon was happening any day. I remember being taught not to make friends at school with kids who weren't in the religion because, Armageddon's going to happen. You're not going to invest into a friendship. I was an honor student in high school, and I was told forbidden from going to college because Armageddon's going to happen, and you're going to go be pulled away, from the truth. And our religion at that time would take whatever recent natural disaster or tragedy or travesty or war or injustice and spin it into, the world's ripe for destruction. Whatever the current crisis was or whatever current, awful crime that was committed was always spun into proof that this world is going to end. And I remember seeing a thing, and it was a scene in Rome, and Rome was at its height, and a guy standing on the street corner with a sign that says, "The end is nigh," in Rome. So the world's going to end just like it did last time, just like it did the time before. And I ended up in my 30s, I wrote a satire stand-up comedy skit on that. Do you want to hear it? Okay. So I'm going to try to make this current, but, on my Twitter feed, on my Facebook feed, on my YouTube feed, or on tonight's evening news. Do you want to hear what's on tonight's evening news? You ready? No. The world's going to end. We're all going to die. And now a word from our sponsors. Whack that fat with Fat Whacker. You're too fat. Your teeth aren't wide enough. You're never going to be happy unless you buy this car. You deserve a break today. Have it your way. Do your eating habits cause you heartburn? Don't change them. Just take this. It's called Numusol. With Numusol, you'll never have to change anything for the rest of your life. Side effects may include unwanted anal discharge. If you experience heart stoppage or sudden death, please consult your physician. Numusol is not for everyone. And if you order now, you get a free set of Ginsu steak knives. You get the lemon peeler, the 35mm camera, the digital clock radio. But wait, there's more. And I think about, it's like I remember growing up, I really believed in a loving God. I really wanted to do what was right. And I remember a lot of times I wouldn't do things because I wanted to go to heaven, or I would do things because I wanted to go to heaven, or I wouldn't do things because I didn't want to go to hell. Or I would do things to avoid going to hell. And I think a lot about, there's a lot of us in this generation that grew up like that, but we have generations coming up where heaven and hell aren't even on the table anymore. We have generations coming up that are trying to find their own moral fiber, that are trying to find a sense of integrity, that are desperately looking for something that's not for sale, that are desperately looking for something that's sacred. And they're looking on their Twitter feed, and they're trying to judge who they are in this world and judge their worth or find their worth through Twitter feeds or Facebook feeds, looking out there for something, and end up falling into the same thing that many of us do, where we just compare ourselves to others. Well, if I'm better looking than that person, that makes me better. And of course, I'll always find someone that's better looking to me, and I'll feel less than. But in this time, especially with younger people coming up, it's an empty chase to try to find basic core values. It's my greatest hope that these generations come up will get saturated with the empty, mindless noise and rediscover that integrity comes from the inside out. Integrity is something that's written in our DNA. It's as simple as, how do I want to be treated? There's something that I would like to mention, and that's, in the world of profit, property, and power, take heaven and hell off the board, it makes sense to cheat, lie, and do those things to get what you want, because then you have what you want. And what many of us have forgotten that we will rediscover, I believe it's inevitable, is that it feels good to love. It feels good to forgive. It feels good to give a shit. In Unity, the Unity is a movement, and they have what they call the 12 powers. I personally think there's more than 12 powers, but they're not going to let me rewrite that. But when I was in the ministry school back in St. Louis, I got a couple of my cohort teachers do the youth programs at different Unities. And they really do this with the youth a lot. So the 12 powers, I'm going to read them off, are wisdom, love, strength, faith, imagination, order, understanding, will, power, zeal, release, life. I add forgiveness. I could add compassion. I could add empathy. I invite you to think about those things as though they're technologies. Okay, hang on, time out. To use a computer analogy, if you'll bear with me for a moment, imagine that our conscious mind is like our RAM. It's what we're using right now. Our subconscious mind is like our hard drive. It's a storage of all these influences and beliefs of culture and family, etc. Our operating system is what we believe about ourselves. What we believe about ourselves and what we believe about the world. That's our operating system. So, if you imagine these things, I'm going to read them off again. Wisdom, love, strength, faith, imagination, order, understanding, will, power, zeal, release, life, forgiveness. All these things exist within us right now. If we were to write love or wisdom on the dash of our car, we would see that every time we get in. We would then subconsciously program our mind to find evidence of that in our world. If we're constantly looking on our feed that's constantly bombarding us with negativity, providing a crisis, then providing a solution, and both are empty chases, we're going to get back more of that. This matrix is designed to respond to our thoughts, which is also a unity principle. But to think about these things as technologies within us that have agency, that lie latent, waiting to be woken up. I want to talk about wisdom for a moment. I heard an illustration about wisdom when I was a kid, and it was, imagine for a moment you're walking along a train track. You're walking along this train track. I used to like to walk along the railing of the train track. And you know that trains ride on train tracks, right? So let's imagine you're walking on a train track and you look up and there's a train coming down the tracks. You know, you understand that if you stay on the tracks and the train comes down the tracks, you're going to be probably killed, if not maimed. Wisdom is the act of getting off the track. Wisdom is the action. Wisdom isn't wisdom unless you're doing something about it. It's something that's lived. So, by meditating on these things, by having community, you know, this community right here we're in right now is a place where we get to practice these things together. We get to hold this space for each other. We get to make mistakes together. We get to practice these spiritual principles together. But most of all, we get to grow. The biggest thing is, as your attorney, I advise you, I'm a practicing attorney at life, litigating for the highest good of all, barred certified, is first to apply these things to yourself. Loving kindness. If we begin to apply loving kindness to ourselves, it's like the Christ said, our cup will runneth over. If we begin to think about these principles to ourselves, they'll start to show up and manifest in our lives. Let's take wisdom. If I practice wisdom, the idea of acting with understanding, I then begin to see it show up in my life. I begin to notice it in other things. It becomes valuable to me. What I value grows. If I go around practicing wisdom, I would be wizening. But if you were to put that in Anglo-Saxon, it would be wizardry. To simply practice wisdom is wizardry. It's neither male nor female. A lot of things have been added onto that, but a wizard was someone who was wise. I see compassion as a wisdom. Kindness is a wisdom. Forgiveness is a big one for me. With forgiveness, I can set myself free. With forgiveness, I can set the world free. As we act these things through our life and make them live, they grow. There's something I want to talk about. It's about justice. You know, I went on a deep dive in justice. I was really pissed off. And I was looking out at the world and just feeling 7 kinds of brokenhearted and 9 kinds of tragic. To the point where I was living that in my life. I was angry. I was resentful. I was seeing it everywhere I looked. And I would do meditations and prayers about justice. And I got an image. Sometimes I get images or visions, whatever you want to call it. Let's call it fiction. Fiction works. But in this image, it was a Native American man. And I remember hearing, I grew up in Central Oregon. There was an old man in Prineville that I used to mow his lawn when I was a kid. His name was Merritt Reynolds. And he grew up in Mitchell, Oregon during the Depression. And they had an apple orchard. And he said that he ate boiled apples, fried apples, canned apples. He said he ate so many apples, he hasn't had an apple since 1939. And Merritt told me that there were still a few free-roaming bands of Paiutes. He said that there was 2 old Paiute women and an old Paiute man, and they would see them around the ranch. They didn't go to the reservation. They just kind of minded their own business, and the settlers left them alone. But in this vision, it was about a Paiute brave, and he was like in his 30s. And if you can imagine just seeing this in a dream, I'm just going to give it to you the way I saw it. He was not willing to go to the reservation, and he was having to live on the outskirts of mankind's society. He was having to stay in the shadows and stay out of the traffic areas, and he was watching everything change. And he's standing on a bluff, and he's overlooking the area, and he's seeing how trees are being cut down and fields are being plowed. But the biggest thing that I felt from him was that this was his homeland. This was where he used to play. He had memories of his grandparents and things that happened, and he couldn't just go where he wanted to go anymore. And he didn't even really want to be around anymore. And he had a breakdown. And I'm going to tell you what I heard him say, if you will allow me. Okay, I call out unto the mountains. I cry into the sky. I fall down on the earth. My heart races, my blood courses. Justice, justice. I call out on the mountains. I cry into the sky. I fall down on the earth. My heart races, my blood courses. Justice, justice. I call out onto the mountains. I cry into the sky. I fall down on the earth. My heart races, my blood courses. Justice, justice. Justice does not belong to authorities or institutions. Justice does not belong to religions or corporations. Justice belongs to us. We are the keepers of justice. Justice is something we live. Now, for that man, justice wasn't something that was going to happen. In his mind, the Great Spirit had made a different decision. All he could do was decide to do the best he could. In our lifetimes, the Great Spirit may have a different idea, and what we think is just may not be happening. But what I'm here to tell you is, justice is something that comes from the inside out. When we live nobly, when we're kind to one another, when we're loving ourselves, when we're forgiving, when we're providing space for our fellows to grow and flourish, we're living justice. Our justice, our worthiness, our self-esteem is not subject to the surrounding economy, the government, the ways of the world. It comes from the inside out. It is a power. You are precious jewels of a loving cosmos who have been called forth now. And it starts with loving kindness for ourselves and then grows out. This is something we make a decision for ourselves. We're not trying to get likes. Justice, integrity, these 12 powers are not something you're going to find in the back pocket of the Dalai Lama's pocketless robes. We're not going to find them in the drawer of Deepak Chopra's desk. They're not written on the soles of Eckhart Tolle's shoes. They exist within us right now, and this cosmos begs to bless us. And hang on, time out. Think about this for a moment. Everyone in this room has the power to bless. It's easy to curse. We live in a society where cursing's seen as an art form. But think about blessing. What we give, we also receive. To have and to be are the same things. To simply bless one another, bless a situation, bless a standing president, bless the economy, bless my car and hope it starts. We have the power to bless. We are amazing beings living at a very important time in human history and world history. We got a ticket to ride. We get to play a part. So I haven't touched on advanced manifestation. Some people say it's a secret. What I would like to say about advanced manifestation is if we are loving ourselves, if we are living our truth, if we are extending that to our fellow man, there's no need to try to manifest anything. There's no need to limit it. Just try to steer it or direct it. This matrix is designed to respond to us. If we're brave enough to love, if we have the courage to forgive ourselves and the world, we set ourselves free, we set the world free, but all of a sudden our self-worth rises. The matrix knows what we need. God knows what we need, knows what would delight us. It's the delight of the matrix for us to be joyful. I'm really into words. I dig words. There's a word that really caught me just a while back. You ready? It's called frolic. So imagine frolicking. Let's start a frolicking club. Tuesday, 2:38 p.m., let's find a field, and let's run around. Let's somersault. Let's dance. But the point is, that's celebrating our joy, which is almost forgotten. Your joy is valuable. And it's not just possible. You're designed to feel joy. We are a technology. We have a synapses in a brain. We have synapses in our heart. We have a synapses in our gut. We didn't spin these bodies up. They were made for us. You can look in a mirror, look into the window of your soul. What is that looking out of there? That's consciousness. No one can figure out what that is. Our conscience is a gift. This life is a gift. I implore you to loving kindness to oneself and know that your justice, your integrity, your wizardry is a practice. It comes from the inside out, and the results are very pragmatic. People who have purpose, people who have faith, people believe in goodness, live longer. They're healthier. Their heart rate's lower. Their cortisol is lower. There are real pragmatic reasons for this. But more than that, just by holding this and be available for others, we're providing a solution. We become the solution. And this world is calling for it now. And so it is.